Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number one in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
What's going on, everybody? This is Critical Failure. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Oh my goodness, we've got quite an episode for you tonight. The cold weather finally broke, and we got a break. More about that later on. We got some sales, not so much sales, but we got some really, really good games and some fun stuff that went down this week. For music, over from Neon City Records, I got Plastic Whatever by Desired. So Neon City Records, if you're not familiar, it is one of the biggest names in, as they say, it's one of the biggest names in vaporwave, but I find a lot more of this music to be along the lines of future funk and that kind of thing. If you like cassette tapes, this is one of the big time cassette tape producers. They release an album on cassette and it sells out super fast. So good stuff. Desired was one of those albums that had a cassette run, and I kind of wanted to get it because it's an awesome sounding album. I just couldn't pull the trigger fast enough. Thankfully, the music is still free, so if you head over to the Neon City Records Bandcamp page, you can get a copy of this album for free if you just want to listen to the MP3s and take it in. All right, boys and girls, we got a lot to go over this week, so let's get started. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. You know, for some people, they say as soon as those Japanese vocals kick in, that's when they check out. I'm curious to see what you guys think, because I was like that for a while. There was a period of time where I just couldn't hang with it, man. I just couldn't. But I think that time has passed, because that's some good music right there. That's Plastic Life. It's the second track. And what are we looking at here? This is 34 minutes and 58 seconds. That's the running time of the album. But that's spread across 15 tracks. So the vast majority of these are pretty short in running time. Even that one was less than 3 minutes. So we'll be able to hear some more of that later on in the show. There is presumably, I read about this today, there's another major Steam sale coming, and I didn't, I don't know why. It's like the solstice or the moon Steam sale, and it happens in February, and it's this piece is being recorded on the 24th of January right now. So it's coming. There's no way this thing is going to be as big as, say, the, the big ones for summer and winter. And man, let me tell you, I hope not, because I'm not ready for another huge sale. This past sale season, right, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, I bought a ton of stuff, probably more than I have in any previous year. And I'm looking at this, my purchases from the winter sale, meaning the last major sale. Got a lot of games I really wanted. And you know what? I've done a pretty good job of actually going back and playing all of these, right? Just to name a couple that I've talked about here in the show. That's when I got Killing Floor 2. That's when I got a couple of the Resident Evil games, Zero and the original remake, Zombie, which I talked about, and Hidden and Dangerous Action Pack, which I've already put 5 hours into, and I've only, I'm playing these games. But I haven't finished with them yet. Not ready for another big sale. But hey, man, sales. Just because the sale's hitting, that doesn't mean I have to partake. But my question is this going to be another thing that they do all the time? Because this was one. It was worthwhile enough that they posted it on Reddit. Give me a second. Let me pop Reddit open. Let me see if I can find the post where they discussed it. As it is, they just gave away the Deponia franchise on Humble Bundle. The entire Deponia series. And I am unlocking that thing right now. That's a point-and-click adventure series that I wanted for quite some time. Split up into several episodes. I just got the whole package. Deponia, The Complete Journey. I think that goes for like $30 or so. Alright, we're trying to find out about this major sale, though. I gotta keep my head where it needs to be. Hang on. Yes, here it is, boys and girls. It's the Steam Lunar New Year sale, and it'll begin running in early February. Let's take a look. Let's see if I can get you an exact date. Bear with me now. Looking forward to my first lunar sale. I managed to get $3 on Steam Wallet, so hopefully there's something I can get worth $3. Yeah, they posted this. Today's the 24th. This came out on the 23rd. This is a reminder that there's another Steam sale event is coming up. Not a sale event. The Steam Lunar New Year sale will run in early February. Full details on the start and end time can be found at the Sale Approval tool, which you can access from the Steamworks homepage under the Apps and Packages drop-down. If you haven't entered discounts for Lunar New Year's sale yet, this is a good opportunity to do so. Okay, so this part, they're talking about developers who want to put their stuff up for sale. All games intended are invited to participate in the sale event, and the Lunar New Year discounts will not count towards the normal 8-week discount cooldown. Okay, so how good or bad it is, I guess that depends on the individual developers to see, what they're gonna do. Hey man, that sounds great. We'll see what happens. I don't have a lot of money saved up, so if I partake, it's gonna be nickels and dimes. It really is. But keep on the lookout for that, I guess. And with that, boys and girls, we're gonna get back in. We're gonna throw the switch on our time machine. We're gonna go back in time to the beginning of the week. Now, mind you, the beginning of this last week on the East Coast of the United States, at least in my area, was cold. It was a cold and miserable time. What a transition it's been since then. So stick with us. Let's take a listen. You're on Tiger Claw Radio.
It's freezing out. It's 12 degrees out. It's Tuesday morning. We had Monday off. It's the Vancast, everybody. What's going on? Give me a second. Let's see if I can make it a little bit quieter in here. And we are just freezing. Last year was a pretty mild winter. And this is the coldest day we've had this year so far. So, yeah, I'm struggling. I had to ride it out about 10 minutes in the car just to warm up before I could record. That way I could, have a hand hold the phone. My fingers were just too cold to vancast. That's not something I had planned for. Monday, of course, was ML King Day. And my apologies for not getting the last TCR up. So, the TCR probably went up on Wednesday by the time you're listening to this. So, my apologies. The weekend was just bananas with family business. It's like I couldn't catch a break, man. That's all right. Let's see. I think it was Saturday night. Maybe it was even Friday night. But I had a gaming session where I played some good old Resident Evil 5. Played it for about 3 hours with Alex Swingle. And I was thinking while I was playing it, I think that's my favorite Resident Evil of the whole series. I think it might be. Except for maybe the first one. I think I might like the first one. The very first one with the tank controls. I might like that one the best just because it was such a huge landmark experience for me. But if you have the chance to play Resident Evil 5, like actually utilizing the co-op with a real person and not just having to deal with the AI, I think it's my favorite. So that was a good time, man. Beyond that, what did I do? Beyond that, it was a lot of struggling. An awful lot. I got the message that there's going to be another mixtape exchange over on Cassette Culture. Which is a big one. Because I loved the last one so much. And I did that video, which people seem to enjoy. So I started scraping together for another track list. And I found 2 other takers this time. Last time it was just 1. This time I've got 2 takers, and I'll probably do a 3rd one before the whole thing is over. See, last time I did the mixtape exchange, I found the topic and got in on it after it had already been up a month, and most of the people had already done what they wanted to do and were finished. This time I was on it like 2 hours after it went up. So I got in with the wave of excitement. So that was pretty cool, man. So looking forward to that. I've got much better hardware now, so I'll be able to make a much better dub, much higher quality sounding dub. I just got to up my J-card game. I got to up my packaging game. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do on that front. I got to get down to FedEx office and see what it costs to print out a nice J-card on cardstock. Because when I print it out on my home printer, there's a lot of bleed and it doesn't look great. So that's cool. That's kind of a fun thing. Also, did anybody print out the Tiger score? Anybody? How'd that go? So I haven't heard any feedback, but I haven't got the main post up yet either. So we'll see. How we doing? Oh man. You know what? I'm just getting ready to get on the highway now and it looks busy, so I'm going to have to get off here. But I can tell you, if I was home and it was all warm, I'd probably sit down. I'd play something I could record scores for. So it'd probably be my Atari. Because I still got a fistful of Atari games from MagFest that haven't got played yet. And I want to play those kind of pretty badly, actually. So that would be, if I could do anything, what I would do right now. But for now, I'm going back to work after a long weekend, so I'm counting my blessings. And I'll see you guys back in the studio.
You know, I sat down with those Atari games this evening for the first time. Now, mind you, that was recorded on, what was it, Monday or Tuesday at the beginning of the week when I was freezing cold, and it is now Friday night at 8:41. So I sat down today to play some of those Atari games. And there was one particular game, Frogs and Flies, which I was looking forward to playing. It got pretty good reviews. I saw it show up on Papa Pete, the old gamer. Papa Pete reviewed Frogs and Flies a while back, he does a lot of he's around the age of 50, so he tells some really good Atari stories. And he did a review of Frogs and Flies, and that game looked dope, man, especially as an Atari fan. Got it home, and I couldn't get it to run, which broke my heart, because that's not the first time that's happened when I've bought loose carts at MagFest. So that didn't work. After that, I tried Infiltrate, which did work, and it was okay. I didn't get to play it much, so more on that later. And yeah, I ended up playing Midnight Pinball, which is an amazing game, except for the fact that I already had a copy of it. So what are you going to do? And with that, let's keep things moving right along. We're going to go to, see, that was recorded on the 22nd. We're going to go to the 24th. This is a couple days later.
Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday. It's the Vancast. It's about 42 degrees out right now, 6:26 in the morning. And let me tell you, even though we got a little bit of rain, just a tiny bit, this is the best morning that I've had in terms of temperature for probably the last 2 weeks. It's the cold weather finally let up. Finally did. To put it in perspective, the last time I walked to my car, it was 12 degrees outside. It was 12 degrees. Now it's 46. It feels good, man. I can hold the phone up to my face and I can talk into it, and I don't have to worry about how my fingers are going to feel. It's a good sign. I think it's a really good sign. I'm driving into the office now. I'm going to go do my day work. Everything's going to be okay. Feels good, man. Last night I sat and watched The Disaster Artist on Amazon Prime before I went to bed. It's pretty cool, man. I know I'm a little bit late to the party with that movie, but I really enjoyed it. I never actually saw The Room, Tommy Wiseau's The Room. I never saw it. I've only ever seen people talk about it on the internet. But I think I'd seen enough that I got all the references. It was fun, man. I don't really watch a whole lot of movies anymore, especially movies that came out recently, because I've kind of thrown my hands up altogether with Hollywood, with the lack of creativity and all the politics and everything like that. Hollywood was just something that doesn't appeal to me anymore. If I'm gonna watch a movie, it's gonna be like a kung fu movie or like an independent movie, or or like a really small sort of thing. So this was this was a good time. Video game wise, I think it's probably the not a whole lot new on that front. I had a lot of time to play games yesterday after work, and rather than play games, I spent it working on the Mixtape Exchange over on Cassette Culture. So not a whole lot I can really say in terms of video games. I made a couple of really quality tapes, and I'm going to the post office to mail them out today. But that's about it. It doesn't. That's the start and end of that conversation. At least till the tapes that the other people have made come in. So we'll see how that goes. I really enjoyed how the video came out I made of the last exchange. So I've been. Oh shoot. That spooked me. I just got spooked. It's a low-hanging branch in the street, and I just drove right through it. Whew. What was I talking about now? Oh yeah, I was going on and on about the Mixtape Exchange. Yes, I made a video about it last time. I'm making a video about it again, but that won't be out until the new tapes come in. So that could be. One of the two guys I'm trading with is in the UK, so that could be, several weeks before that happens. So, it is what it is, I guess. This morning, Dead by Daylight was fun, but it's the same as it always is, I wouldn't mind doing another video or two about Dead by Daylight, especially like what it's like to try and play it at 5 in the morning. The last game I did that with was H1Z1 before that game died. It's like playing that at 5 in the morning and just seeing how it's different. because H1Z1, or not H1Z1, Dead by Daylight is still a popular game. So when I get on and play it at 5 in the morning, it's still a lot like what it's like to play it, at 2 in the afternoon on a Saturday. There's enough people playing that I can get a game going easy and get my fix. A lot of games that aren't like that. H1Z1 was a perfect example towards the end of that game's life cycle. I mean, till the end of when I started playing it. You could play that on Saturday night at peak time, but no other time. So if I woke up at 5 in the morning to get ready for work and I had an hour to play games, H1Z1 is off the table. A lot of games like that. So if you're going to play a multiplayer-based game, you're going to play in off hours, it better be something really popular like Counter-Strike or TF2 or in this case Dead by Daylight, which is awesome. And I think Friday the 13th has joined those ranks as well. Joined the ranks of games you can't play unless it's peak time. Been a while since I tried to play that. But I remember the last time I tried to play, it was like I had the day off and it was like 1 in the afternoon on a Wednesday and I could not get a game going. I miss Friday the 13th, man. To compare Friday the 13th to Dead by Daylight one last time, I can say this. Dead by Daylight's got way better killers in that they're varied and they're different, whereas Friday the 13th, everybody's Jason. There's different kinds of Jasons, but everybody's Jason. All you got is Jason. But the thing is, Friday the 13th had way better survivors. The counselors in Friday the 13th, I think, were way more fun to choose from than the Dead by Daylight survivors. The survivors in Dead by Daylight look very milquetoast, very, very plain and vanilla when compared to the counselors in Friday the 13th. And this is just something that's just occurring to me now. I don't know why that is, because they spent a lot of creative energy on the killers. I don't know. A good game, though. A good game that I've talked about ad nauseum. So I'm going to move on from Dead by Daylight at this point. You know what I'd like to do is I'd like to sit down and play Resident Evil 5 again. I had an awesome session of that game with Alex Swingle. We played about 3 hours, just enough to get me hooked. It's like, oh man, it's so fun. It's so fun, but I haven't been able to sit down with him again since. Here's one for you. I played Zombie, which is the Steam port of Zombie U, right? It came out on the Wii U towards the beginning of that system's life cycle, and it was like a zombie game where you would use the Wii U tablet to manage your inventory, and also as like a scanner, like you'd hold the tablet up in front of you, and then it would show you what in the room you could interact with. There's a Steam port of that, and the tablet functionality is weird because you're playing on Steam and there's no tablet, of course. Essentially, you just press a button and it makes the screen turn blue, and then you can see what you can interact with. It's very weird. If I didn't already know where the functionality came from or why it's there, it would seem very out of place. But it's a surprisingly playable and fun game. The combat with the zombies, I think, is done well. That's a hard thing to get right in these zombie games, right? Because when you're facing off against a single zombie or some zombies, there should be some risk and there should be some tension, but you can't make it overpowered, right? Case in point, the original, or not the original, but the Resident Evil remake of the first game, the one that came out on the GameCube. If you play that on one of the harder difficulties, because I know the PC port has an easy difficulty, every zombie you meet is a huge threat. A huge threat. So on one hand, it makes a lot of genuine tension whenever you see one. On the other hand, when you see one and you really want to get through it, I feel like your options are really limited, and it makes the game hard to play. So that would be an example of the hard scale. What would be like an easy scale zombie? Maybe Dead Island, where you can just kick them to death, and they really are no threat unless there's several of them. This finds a good middle ground. Give me a second here. Oh, another thing that I like is if you die in this game, your character is dead. And that's it. Like, you can continue with the story, but you're playing a different character altogether, a different person. You look different, you have a different name, everything's different. And you're trying to pick up where the other person you were just playing as left off. It's clever, it's a neat idea to maintain continuity, but understand that there's stakes to death. It's really cool, I like it. I haven't played this game for a really long time. I put in about an hour or so. But I really liked what I played of it. Especially considering it was not an expensive game. I got it amidst the sales, and I paid about $5 for it. So, yeah. So I'm getting my money's worth. It's a good game. I like it. I've heard people say it's short, so it's a good one to get on sale. I could pay $5 for a game and beat it in 5 hours, and that's fine. You know, I think that's proportionate. But we'll see. I'll check back with you on that one. I get a lot of zombie games, I think, recently. I'm on a weird zombie game kick, and I didn't see it happening until I'd already bought the games. I bought a bunch of the Resident Evil games, and then Killing Floor 2, and then Zombie. Yeah, a lot of zombie games. Which, by the way, while we're on the subject, this game, the Steam port of Zombie U, Zombie is not a good enough name. You can't just call it Zombie. There's too many zombie games out there. First of all, they call it Zombie without the E, right? Z-O-M-B-I, or I believe it is. The original Dawn of the Dead from the late 70s, when that came to the UK, they called it Zombie like that, right? Same spelling. That was the UK or the European version of that name, I believe, all throughout Europe, actually. Now that game had a PC port, a point-and-click adventure on the PC in the late 80s, called Zombie, spelled the same way. So technically, when they put this game out, Zombie U, and they ported it to Steam and took the U off the end, there was already a computer game out that had the same name spelled the same way. So I could be like, hey man, I'm gonna do my Let's Play of Zombie on Steam, and then load it up and have it be the 1980s point-and-click adventure game. And technically, you know, would be completely correct. I don't know. Maybe that's splitting hairs. There's a lot of things to like about this game. And the creativity they put into the title is not one of them. I don't know. I've been so busy lately, when I sit down to play a game, I've been spending a lot of time just hiding behind the games I'm comfortable with. Playing Dead by Daylight, playing Hidden and Dangerous still gets played. Although I ran into a problem with Hidden and Dangerous where when you try and load that game, it's one of these games that on Steam that it gives you a menu. You can play Hidden and Dangerous, or you can run Hidden and Dangerous with the expansion, or you can run the setup, or you can run Hidden and Dangerous Deluxe. All these versions that you can try and play. And I had been running Hidden and Dangerous Deluxe. And I got really far in the game. I got further than I'd ever got before, right? And then that particular version of the game stopped working. It's weird because I remember when I was playing it thinking, hey, there's not really much different about playing this deluxe version. But now it won't even load. When I try and load the game, it only loads the setup. And then I step through the setup, and then it just loads the setup again immediately after. It's very weird. So I lost my save in Hidden and Dangerous, which is, I mean, if you lose your save in a game, it doesn't matter what the game is, it's a frustrating experience. So that happened, and I'm dealing with it. But after losing my save, I've still gone back to play it a couple of times. So that was one of these games, man. I bought the big box edition, in the early 2000s, and it was part of my collection. It's a weird game. I've always known that it had flaws, but I miss it. And before I bought it, I was standing at GameStop, back when you could buy big box PC games from GameStop, brand new, for cheap. And they had like a pile of demo discs at the counter, and they're like, "Hey man, you want a demo disc?" I was like, "Right on." And it was the demo for Hidden and Dangerous. Had the first 2 levels in it. That was how I figured out about this game. So it's one of the games that's written into my history. So going back to play it now, it's like going back to play one of the familiar games. It's kind of like going back to play Quake or something like that, but not quite as bad or as cliche as Quake. Quake is really written into my history. That is a game that's one of the chosen games, to put it the way Sean puts it. It's one of the chosen. So yeah, not a whole lot of time spent discovering new things. Although I would say playing Zombie for an hour counts. Alright, so if I were back home, what would I play? It's a weird one, because I can think of 2 possible things. One, I kind of want to play Zombie after talking about it. I want to put in a second hour, just to see where it goes, see if it gets weird. Because I'm really only at the start of the game, and the start of the game is written and executed very, very well. There's a lot of games where it's like, okay, the start of the game is good, but then it gets weird really fast. A good example of that is Resident Evil 5. I think the start of the game is good, when you're fighting the zombies or whatever. And then in the later stages, when you're fighting the bigger monsters, I think it gets a little hokey. Which is okay, it's still a good game. Nothing wrong with being a little hokey, but it definitely makes a hard turn at some point. And I want to see if Zombie does that same thing. Alright, give me a second here. So that's one option. The other option would be to finally sit down with these Atari games that I got at MagFest. Got a stack of Atari games when I was down there, and I haven't sat down with them yet. And you're probably thinking it's because they go in the backlog and I just haven't had time and I don't really want to play them. That sort of thing happens. Happens a lot with Steam. I buy games that I'm not really going to play. That's not the case. The case is the physical location of the Atari in my house is a place that's very difficult to play. I have the Atari hooked up to a CRT in my bedroom, okay? In my bedroom. That means if my wife is sleeping, it's off the table. You know what I'm saying? It's tough. And that TV is very elevated. So I have to sit on like a bar stool to play it or stand in front of it. So I usually play it, and I have it set up that way on purpose because I usually play it in very short intervals, right? It's a good system to play if gaming is just kind of like off right now. And it's like there's no time to play a video game, but I really want to make a little time. Then the Atari is usually the go-to system. Yeah, so, maybe it's time to get a second Atari. This is another thing about Atari. It's like, I need to be paring down what I own and getting rid of a lot of the extra stuff, especially now. But the Atari is a system that lends itself to owning lots of stuff. The games are cheap. You can pile them up really fast. There's a lot of peripherals. No, that's not fair. There's not a lot of peripherals. There's the joystick, and then there's the paddle, and those are the only ones that really matter. Yeah, and you got to keep the books because those games need their books and stuff. I don't know. Maybe my collection is just getting too big, but yeah, that's cool. I enjoy it. Maybe it is time to get another Atari. That'd be fun to have an Atari for Panzer Studios. Stick one on my TV that already has too many systems on it. So it would be, if I were able to shut everything off and just go home, it would either be the Atari or it would be Zombie on Steam. Amongst the Atari games, one I really want to play is called Oink. It's like a more uncommon of the Activision games. Activision has like a fistful of games that everybody knows, like Pitfall and Skiing and stuff like that. Oink is like in that product line, but not many people seem to have it or know about it. It's one of the more uncommon games. So if you're an Atari guy, you probably already know the game I'm talking about, but I came across it in the stacks at MagFest, and I was like, oh yeah, man, I gotta have this. This is mine. So that should be cool. I didn't get any feedback from the Tiger score yet, so I'm committed to doing 5 issues of the Tiger score. So the second one is going to have to be all from scratch. There's not going to be any follow-up to the pinball or the Atari 7800 stuff from the first issue. And I gotta say, doing the first issue was cool because it forced me to go back and play those Atari 7800 games that Jerry played, right? So because I was doing the Tiger Score project, I ended up experiencing and trying new games that I hadn't played before. And you know what? They were okay. There was some fun to be had for sure. You'll have to go read the Tiger Score to see what I thought, though. Woo! That was a curveball. Well, all right, boys and girls, we're pushing 20 minutes here. Was it 20 minutes and 38 seconds? Making this the longest Vancast in quite some time. I've been trying all week to get a decent Vancast, but it's been really difficult with the weather. Oh boy. So yeah, I'm glad we got to sit and talk because it feels good. It's therapeutic for me to just hang out with you guys and talk about some video games. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna hang it up now. I'll see you guys back in the comfortable Panzer Studios.
All right, boys and girls, we're gonna play another track from Plastic Whatever. Or excuse me, is that the yeah, Plastic Whatever from Desired. But first, I want to take a minute to thank the patrons, the Patreon sponsors. These guys give their resources to make sure this show comes back every single week, no matter what. So I like to read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. They are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thank you guys so much for supporting Tiger Claw Radio. All right, let's listen to some Desired. right, boys and girls, you know what time it is. We're going to return to the van one last time, and we're 40 minutes into the show, and we're going back to the van. So you know this is going to be a jumbo-size episode. So the last one that we did that was recorded on the 24th, that was the long one. It's the longest van cast that's been in quite some time. I generally don't like to do them that long. This one's not nearly that long. This was from this morning. It was a little bit colder. There was ice on the ground. I didn't have to scrape anything off the car, so it wasn't miserable, but there was ice on the ground, and I was a little bit spooked while I was driving. So let's give it a listen and see what happens. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. After this, we're going to come back and do the fail bag.
Well, it's Friday, it's the Vancast, and we're back to really cold weather. Oh my gosh, it's cold. But after today, I'll be done with work for the week. I can put my feet up, take the weekend off, hang out with my family, play some games, and it'll be all right. Last night I got to put in another hour into Resident Evil with good old Alex Swingle, which was a great time. It was really good, man. I had a lot of fun with it. I also picked up a game. I already forget what it's called. I want to say Green Jeans, but that's a band. It's not Green Jeans. It's like the Mean Greens or something. It's one of these games that's themed around army men, right? It's like it's a third-person shooter using models that are made to look like green army men toys. And I picked it up for 99 cents. And I set it to install before I went to sleep. So this morning when I got up, it was all set up and ready to go. So I gave it a shot, man. And you know what? The servers were populated. I'm assuming because it's a 99-cent game right now. And I jumped right into a game. And I gotta say, it was a lot of fun. Oop, hang on a second. School buses, man. There we go. We did all right. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I played 2 rounds. One battle that was on a giant foosball table, which is something I've seen in a bunch of games where it's like, get the ball into the other team's goal. And that's what this was. So I had 2 people on my team, and one guy was pushing the ball, and me and the other guy were like trying to shoot the other team members of like the other team to kind of clear the path. And we won that match. And then we did sort of a train battle. Sorry, car was sliding. So glad I didn't get in an accident there. Whew, I must have hit some black ice or something. Alright, tell you what, we're gonna go way slower now. I wasn't going that fast either, I was going about 30. Alright. You know what? We lived. What was I talking about? That game, yeah. Oh boy. Alright, hang with me for a second. Yeah, so I played a couple matches of this army men type game. I don't know what it's called. I'll have to come up with a name back in the studio after this piece, but we'll see. And I can tell you that just now that almost became the last video game I would ever play. But it was fun. Here's the thing. It's currently 90% off. Alright, at the time this is being recorded. So I paid 99 cents for it. It's typically $9.99. For $1, great game. Oh man. For $10? I don't know. Swingle was saying, I was talking to Swingle last night when I picked it up, and he was saying, like, if you like Unreal games, it's kind of like Unreal with some nice top quality skins. Excuse me. And he's got a point. My only problem with that is I traditionally think of Unreal as a first-person shooter, and this was a third-person shooter. Oh, deer in the road. My goodness. But he might have been referring to the engine. It's an Unreal Engine game. So, I don't know. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, because I feel like the rest of the drive needs my full attention. But if I were back in, back in the studio now, I'd probably play more of that Army Men game, because I only played it probably for 20 minutes or so this morning. I would play more of that, and if I could play anything, I would finish up Resident Evil 5. I'm hooked, man. I probably got, let's see, Swingle and I were talking about it after the last session we played. Probably got another 4 hours or so, I don't know. He said a session or two. That sounds about right. I've played all the way through it before, but it's been so many years. I played through it on the Xbox 360 with a buddy of mine. And I gotta say, the PC controls are not great, but having mouse accuracy, man oh man, so much better. It's what I wanted from Resident Evil 4. And the PC port of that game, for whatever reason, just didn't quite stack up the same way. Yes, I would play Resident Evil 5 if I could do anything, but given that Swingle's probably not on now at 6:39 in the morning, if I were back home all by my lonesome, I'd probably do more of that Army Man game. Brand new game, only 20 minutes into it. Only did 2 matches. And there's a lot of maps. I want to see what the other map, what else it has to offer. Especially now, because one problem is that it doesn't have any bot matches. No bot matches. Which is especially weird for an Unreal Engine game. I thought Unreal was known for the bots. Unreal always had good bot support. So, it strikes me as a little weird. But no bot matches. And I think that the servers are populated more now than they would be otherwise because it's on sale. Because I got on there this morning and there was probably 30 servers that were full. Like, there was a lot of people playing this game. So I want to take advantage of it and have a good time with it while it's still on sale before the servers start to empty out. And that'd be what I'd do. All right, boys and girls. I'm going to send you back to the studio where it's safe. Hopefully I'll see you there in one piece. And we are back safe and sound in Panzer Studios. The game I was trying to remember is called The Mean Greens Plastic Warfare. It was by Virtual Basement LLC. And yeah, it's $9.99. It's a $9.99 game. It's on sale for 99 cents right now. So as soon as I'm done recording TCR tonight, I'm actually going to buy a few more copies of this to kind of spread around amongst my friends, because I really dug it, man. It was a good game. I had some good fun. And by this time, these types of shooters, especially ones that are created in the Unreal Engine, the various Unreal Engines, I was able to just jump right in. I knew the buttons to press without having to be told. I didn't have to do any sort of tutorials or anything like that. So yeah, I can recommend it. I picked it up on a recommendation from Swingle. We were on last night and we were talking about it, and he was like, yeah, man, you'll know what's what if you know those types of games. And he was right, and it's a good game. So thanks, Swingle. All right, let's do the fail bag. So you guys know how this goes. It's a small show. It's just you here. It's just me. Let's take advantage of it, and let's build some community together. This is the part where it really becomes about you and what you guys think of the show and whatever it is that you have to say, because that's an important part of what Tiger Claw Radio is. I want you to understand, if this part of the show dries up, that's like a part of the show dying. You know what I mean? This is the part where we all sit and talk about what's going on. So let's hear what you guys got. The best way to get a hold of me is through YouTube. But if you know me personally, feel free to write me an email. Just be clear about what you do and don't want read on the air. So we're going to head over to YouTube and see what's up from last week. Now, last week was episode 269. All right, so this is happy episode 270, everybody. And we got a really good fail bag. Got a few from Swingle. Got one from Death Adder, who I love to hear from.
Desm 101, Mecha Menace, all the bros. A lot of the bros. So let's see. I got to make sure that nothing's being omitted because sometimes people write comments and they don't show up immediately. All right, from the oldest first. Wait, how do I do this? Sort by date so I can see the oldest first. All right, the oldest first. Alex Swingle writes, at minute 18, hearing you talk about running a magazine sounded as serious as a 12-year-old running a Counter-Strike clan. First of all, 12-year-olds that run Counter-Strike clans, some of those Counter-Strike clans run by really young people were incredibly elaborate. So I know you meant that as an insult, but I'll take it. Another thing, that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's just one guy here, way in over his head. I don't really know what I'm doing, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it anyway. And by the way, while you're at it, pick up a copy of the Tiger Score. It's the Tiger Claw Radio print and play magazine. Print it out. It's got some high scores on it. Sit down with your systems and try and beat the scores. And you can write your high scores right on it and then write in, tell me how you did. It's the Tiger Score. I'm going to try one a month for 5 months, and we're going to see how it goes. If it's a total flop, it's going to be 5 flops. Right now it's posted on Patreon. I haven't managed to get it up anywhere else yet, but it's going to be on TigerClawTV.com as well as thenextround.net. I'll make sure it's posted there too. What's on my shelf writes Cat System Corp. It sounds like he'd be on with Jimmy Square on SoundCloud. Check him out. If you want to find more of the same, I believe the genre is called R&B instrumental or hip-hop instrumental. I love Breakout, but Arachnoid set the pace for all future brick-busting games. The Arachnoid series is the best, especially Arachnoid vs. Space Invaders. How are your paddles for the 2600? Any jittering? If so, it's really easy to fix that by opening and cleaning the contacts. Mecha Menace, you talked about 2 things that I love. Let's start with Cat System Corp. Cat System Corp does a lot of different stuff. And that lo-fi hip-hop album is just the one album that's like that. Most of his stuff tends to be more vaporwave. He's got some Mallsoft albums out that are really popular that just kind of sound like that background mall music. That album, and that's a short album too. It's the only lo-fi hip-hop album he did. And what was it called? R&B instrumental or hip-hop instrumental? Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I only call it lo-fi hip-hop because I was introduced to that type of music through those really long playlists on YouTube with the anime kids that are studying. Those are really popular YouTube videos. A lot of people listen to those. So, yeah, I would be down. And who is this? Jimmy Square? I'm going to check him out right now. Check 'em out, check 'em out, check 'em out. You know, not a big hip-hop guy, but when I got into cassette tapes, see, in the cassette tape community, every now and then I see these old hip-hop tapes circulate, and I look at them differently from like modern hip-hop, all right? I would love to have like an old Run DMC tape. I don't have any Run DMC, but I do have Biz Markie. I got Biz Markie's The Biz Never Sleeps, which is the one that's got Just a Friend on it. That's a great album. It really is. What was I looking up? I was looking up your SoundCloud guy. Jimmy Square. I'm spelling this all wrong. SoundCloud. Yeah, there we go. I'm not a big SoundCloud guy because I like to keep the MP3s. Right? If there's somebody that like if there's music that really sort of touches me in that way, that I want to have it and like listen to it over and over again, listen to it in the car, I need to be able to download it. I'm not going to get the SoundCloud app, and I'm not going to use up my streaming my data streaming SoundCloud from my car. And my problem with SoundCloud is the vast majority of people who upload there, you can't download anything. All right, so here we go. Here's Jimmy Square, and I'm taking a look at the his SoundCloud feed, and it looks like a bunch of other people's stuff. Here we go. Big Trouble in Little China. I don't know how I can make this play. I don't think I can. It's just To describe what I'm hearing, it sounds like somebody spent $200 on a copy of FL Studio. They laid down a basic 1-2 1980s hip hop beat, and it's flooded with all sorts of samples from videos. Yeah, it's got some pep to it. It's got some there's some talent here, I would say. But again, the total restrictive nature of SoundCloud makes me it stops me from falling in love with it. It really does. But you know what? I'm gonna throw this guy a follow, because even with that said, that's a good beat. That's a good beat. I dig it. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate your sharing. Next thing you talked about was Breakout. Breakout versus Arachnoid. That, in my mind, Breakout versus Arachnoid is not a fair comparison, because let's be real. Arachnoid is the tricked out Breakout. Breakout's the early game, and Arachnoid is like the final form of that kind of game. I agree with you, it's a better game. It is. But Breakout was good for, its time. It's like comparing the original Mario Brothers to Super Mario Brothers. The Super Mario Brothers, it pushed the bar forward technologically. So yeah, it's a better game. I actually don't have paddles for the Atari 2600. Now, I know Bithead 1000 did a great video where he took them apart and kind of showed you how to clean it out and make it work with no jitters. The only way I was able to play Breakout was that they had it set up at MagFest. So I love the paddles. I think they're amazing. There's nothing else that feels quite like an Atari 2600 paddle, but I just haven't thrown down the money to buy one yet. Because to get one off of eBay, I think it's like $15 to $30. It's a lot of money. And I haven't come across one like out in the wild. I don't really come across video games out in the wild anymore. It's just not something that happens, which really makes me sad inside. But yeah, that's a scoop of reality. Anyway, awesome comment. Mecha Menace, my man. It's good to hear from you. Jimmy Square, man. Yeah, I would have loved to have found some way to play this over the... Yeah, I know I could probably hook it up somehow, but it would take a lot of extra effort to play 2 seconds of music that could potentially get this video flagged on YouTube. So it's a dangerous game. Alex Swingle writes in, and we got a double-sided comment from Alex Swingle. He writes in, at minute 38, you complaining about your own chiptune work. It would not be punk if you made 10 to 12 4-minute songs. It would be like 22-minute songs. Stop hating, hater. Then again, it wouldn't be punk if you loved yourself. Yeah, see, I agree. What I'm getting at is we both know you can't leave your punk roots no matter what you pursue. That's true. Embrace it. Yep. There's a whole lot of wisdom in that sentence right there. Personally, I don't like the longer chiptune songs because almost all of them ruin their replay value. They get a good groove line going, then they switch to reggae at the 2-minute mark, and then they switch to country for the closing 2 minutes. I feel these chiptune sites are creating a noise culture like those LA hipsters smearing poop on the Mona Lisa replica. The one-upmanship is destroying good chiptune. Yeah, there's some really good points in here. I think you can see it. You see it the most in the tracks that are collaborations. Like the one that I played, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, where it had that one breakdown groove in it that kind of sounded like it was from Shadowgate. That was a collaboration track that passed between like 4 people's hands. Now it has that awesome breakdown in it, but I also think that it's clearly disjointed work. Those 4 people had 4 completely different songs in mind that they just kind of mashed together. Now, give me 1 second. I just want to make sure. I want to make sure that this is actually recording correctly. Bear with me. Yes, we are sounding good. Yeah, a lot of wisdom in that comment, my man. He also writes, as a side note, you can convert the critical toilet paper to a JPEG or PNG, so it can be very easy to download off your Blogger page. JPEG and PNG are embeddable. PDFs aren't website friendly due to embedding limitations. You can also copy and paste the current month's scores in the YouTube URL page. Don't worry about updating stuff. Just make it easy to get a hold of the scores to compete against. Afterwards, people can post comments for scores or post them on the forums if they want to tell the world how good they are at obscure ColecoVision game. You know what, Alex? I know this has nothing to do with the point you were trying to make, but I have never played a ColecoVision game, so there. It's actually one of the big black holes in my gaming career. I really wanted to get a ColecoVision. I especially remember this when my son was very little. He's 9 years old now, but when he was little, I used to have like the kind of cabinet you would typically see in a stereo stack, and I had it filled up with systems, and I wanted to get a ColecoVision. Now at that time, you could get a working ColecoVision for $75. This was probably like maybe 2012. I don't know. I could be wrong about that year. But at that point, it was $75 for a ColecoVision. And I never pulled the trigger. I didn't make it happen. And even while I was not pulling the trigger, I was like, you know what? If I don't get this thing now, I'm never going to get it. And now that it's been so long, let's see exactly what a ColecoVision costs. ColecoVision. Now you're going to have to give me some slack here because we've proved in previous episodes that at a cursory search on eBay, I'm not the best at this. Right? I usually come up with prices that are too high. You guys out there who know your stuff can usually contradict me, tell me that it's too much, and that makes me worried about buying things on eBay. But here we go. Just taking a look. This is all past the $100 mark. ColecoVision system and 30 games plus Atari expansion module, $135 plus $45 shipping, and that's an auction that has a bid on it. To be fair, that's a pretty monster lot. It has the ColecoVision the Atari expansion, so it's like a 2600 and a ColecoVision literally mashed together. So let's see if we can find one cheaper than that. Here's one with no cables for $134.99. Vintage ColecoVision console model 2400 untested, $64.99. I don't think it has any cables, but that's more my speed. If I drop down a little bit, there's a lot that don't have cables. What's the deal with the ColecoVision cables? I don't know. Maybe it's, I'm looking at it now and I feel like maybe it's not that much more expensive. I would just have to be careful about it and maybe buy one of these box consoles with no cables and then buy the cables separately. Yeah, I don't know. That's the ColecoVision. Swingle, thanks for writing in, man. It's good to hear from you. Desm101, my man. At 51 minutes and 40 seconds, he writes, "For sure, man. Glad you were digging the Saturn. It still amazes me the library it has. Many of the games are too expensive, so importing and using the backup unlocker helps with that. The last episode helped convince me I should just get a Wii to play light gun games. Found one for pretty cheap. Now I can start picking up those Resident Evil rail shooters and the other exclusives. Great music on this episode too. Some of the tunes reminded me of of Boards of Canada, or this other vaporwave dude, Dan Mason. You dig the vaporwave, huh? I dig it as well. I'm but a child in the world of vaporwave, but a terrible newbie. So I'm learning about these things too, just like everybody else. But it makes for something good that we can kind of learn about together here on the show. I've been really digging these DIY cassette tapes. I hang out on cassette culture on Reddit, and then people show up and they're like, "Hey, I'm starting a label out of my bedroom. Here are the tapes that I have. They're however much they are, and if there's something I can afford, like $6 or $7 if the music's good, I'll go ahead and get them. A lot of the time, all of the time, they come with digital copies of the music, so the cassette tapes show up, and by the time they come in the mail, I've already heard the songs. I've really been enjoying that. I've been enjoying taking just a little bit of money and putting it back into the actually being a real patron of the arts, I guess, so to speak. I've really been enjoying that. Vaporwave is a great has that sort of scene as well. A lot of vaporwave is on cassette right now. There's a little bit on vinyl, but it's really expensive and there's not much of it. So vaporwave really lives on Bandcamp, with zip files of MP3s and cassettes, and that's where Vaporwave lives. I dig it, man. I dig it, man. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Good to hear from you, as always. Death Adder. Before you prestige, have you been checking the shrine of... Okay, I'm going to stop here for a second. He's talking about Dead by Daylight. Okay. That wasn't clear. I just wanted to throw that out there. Some comments on some things I mentioned the last time. Here we go. Before you prestige, have you been checking the Shrine of Secrets to cash in your iridescent sharding on? It's a good way to get the other survivor perks without spending countless hours grinding. There's a lot of good perks to keep an eye out for. You're the only person I know who likes this game, so I'll spurg out for a second. Here's a list I recommend. Self-Care for Claudette. Good for healing when your team sucks. Never enter the fog without it, brother. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You can't heal yourself unless you got a med kit, or unless you're Claudette. If that ever turns up, you know I'll get it. But you know what, Death Adder? I've never played as Claudette even once, so that hasn't shown up yet. Premonition, good for knowing where the killer is. That one has shown up naturally sometimes. Technician, good for missing a generator skill check. Don't have that one yet. That's Fei Ming, right? Window of Opportunity from Kate, good for escaping the killer. We're Gonna Live Forever from David. And also the new guy, Jeff, or Fat Jesus, has a lot of good perks, including Breakdown, which breaks the hook once you're saved. I think that is an awesome FU to the killer. I'm sure a highly trained Dead by Daylight enthusiast has a better list, but I often use those. You know what? This is such an awesome comment because this takes it to a level that I don't see very often. And you know what? If I go to my profile, I've got a screenshot of Dead by Daylight that shows what my pre-prestige layout was. Now, I played as Dwight. So Dwight is what they call the support guy. And I had 3 perks that I always use, and the 4th one was like a variable slot that I changed quite often. He had one that makes it so that when you're in a group of people, everyone else in the group gets a bonus. He had another one that makes it so that when you're in a group of people, you get a bonus. I always used those 2 together. So whenever I was in a group of people, they got bonuses, I got bonuses, and those compacted on each other, and we just did the generators fast. That was how I did it. Play as Dwight, do the gen rush. I also used one that made it so that I could see, I don't remember what it was called, but it made it Bond, I think it's called, makes it so that you can see the other survivors, their yellow outlines, through the walls within a certain range. So those 3 that I had, and they were all leveled up to rank 3. And then the 4th one, most of the time I use Dark Sense, which makes it so that once you complete a generator, you can see the killer for about 10 seconds. So the strategy was find other team members, which was easy because I could see them through the walls, follow them, do the gen rush, and then once we completed generator, we could see where the killer was. I could see where the killer was for 10 seconds. What oftentimes ended up happening was I would get chased by the killer, and because I could see the other survivors through the walls, I would purposefully find the other survivors and run past them, hoping that the killer would go for them and not me. It's the biggest jerk move I can think of, but it's something I actually did playing Dead by Daylight quite a bit. So yeah, that was my setup. Sometimes I would trade Dark Sense out for one that makes it so that I could see the chests through the walls in the same way, and thus I had an easier time like finding items. So that changed out a little bit, but that was my routine, and I did end up prestiging and lost everything. And you know what? It was fine. It was fine. No problem at all. I've gotten those 3 main perks that I told you about. I've got them all up and running. I'm back up to like level 21 now. They're not all at level 3. They're not level 3 perks. So they're not as strong as they used to be, but I can still do the core powers. I can still follow the core strategy. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm still having fun. So thanks everybody for letting me spurg out about Dead by Daylight just a little bit with the only other person who really knows this game on that level. Man, it sucks so bad that you don't have a computer that can run it. I would buy this game for you tonight to add to your Steam collection if you could run this game and we could play it together. I would buy it tonight. Darabka has it, and 2 other guys from the from the next round have it as well. That's enough people that we could have a full game of just the next round dudes. So that would be beyond amazing. But 'tis for another day or another life. Death Adder, my man, thanks for writing in. I really appreciate that. And with that, boys and girls, it's 9:11 at night. I really want to play some games, so if we made it an hour and 10 minutes in, I'm not going to roll the usual outro music because I just want to get this done. But thanks so much for joining me. You know what? Strangely enough, this week I had a really good time making this. I really did. I feel like this is one of the stronger episodes. Maybe it's the music. I don't know. I thought the music was really good. But thanks for listening. And as you go out into this next week, I hope you do okay. I'm rooting for you. I really am. Because I know sometimes life can be a bit of a monster. But you know what? To quote a band that I liked very much called Earth Crisis, I turned myself into a monster to fight the monsters of the world. I'll see you guys next week.